And respected colleagues. I am Suleiman Abrahaman Kau Sumaila, representing Kano South Senatorial District. Mr. President, my dear colleagues, I am hereby move to adopt and approve the Board of Proceeding of 15th October 2025 as agreed here. Mr. President, I so moved.
Senator Allwell, Oyenson, Henacho, can you please second the motion as moved by Senator Kausmaila?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, my colleagues. I am Allwell Onyeso. I was elected by the people of Rivers East. I stand here to support the motion, the votes and proceeding as moved by my colleague Kawo, Senator Kawo from Kano. Thank you very much.
But you are not elected by the entire people of Rivers State. What part of Rivers State elected you?
I said Rivers East.
Rivers East?
Rivers East.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Well noted. Yes. Those in favor of the motion for the adoption of the votes and proceedings of yesterday, moved by Senator Kao Sumela of Kano South and seconded by Senator Allwell Onyose Ihacho, Chairman, Senate Committee on Federal Character, Rivers East. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Those against the motion, say nay. The ayes have it. The votes and proceedings of yesterday is hereby adopted. Announcement. The Senate Committee on Review of the 99 Constitution will meet on Thursday, that is today, 16th of October, 2025, immediately after plenary at conference room 022, Senate Building National Assembly Complex. There will be a clause-by-clause consideration of the bills before the committee, preparatory to a joint retreat with the House of Representatives. Ad hoc Committee on Constitutional Review scheduled to hold from Thursday, 23rd day of this month to Sunday, this 26th day of October 2025. Members are therefore enjoined to attend. Signed by me, the Deputy President of the Senate. Announcement by Senator Allwell, Senator Chief Allwell Hiacho Onyeson, DSSRS, JP, FIB, KL. Notice of demise of my elder sister, late Mrs. Silverline Nwada Onyeso Odubu. With deep regrets, I write to formally inform Your Excellency and my distinguished colleagues of the passing of my immediate elder sister, Mrs. Silverline Nwada Onyeso Odubu, who slept in the Lord in the early hours of Monday, the 13th day of October 2025 in Port Harcourt. My dear sister, a fulfilled entrepreneur, was exemplary all through her life and times on earth, and was a rallying point for our amiable family. True, nothing brings heaven closer than the passing of a loved one. Whilst we remain assured that the Almighty God will repose our soul in eternal bliss and grant us the fortitude to bear her passage. Her interment stroke funeral program will be communicated in due course. Thank you for your attention and heartfelt condolences. Sincerely yours, Senator Olwell Hiacho Nyosu, DSRRS, JP, FI, BA, KM, Rivers East Central District, Chairman, Senate Committee on Federal Character and Intergovernmental Affairs. As some common would say, Senator Orwell, if I have other title, bring that, I will read it for you. Senate Leader. Oh, any petition? Oh, sorry, he has a petition. We thought there was no petition. There's no petition, sorry.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Neda Imaswe, Senator representing Edo South Senatorial District, Chairman Senate Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions. I have two petitions, Mr. President. First, the petition is from Apiambo Ibigbenye W. and 9 other persons, submitted through the Office of the President of the Senate against the Council for the Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, CORED, for ineffectiveness in regulating technical practice in Nigeria. They pray that the Senate should look into the matter and request for the establishment of a distinct regulatory council for the regulation of technical works and education in Nigeria. But the second petition...
Is there any legal encumbrance?
None.
But from the tone of the petition, it doesn't look like it should be a petition.
Well, it came as a petition to us.
Can you read that again?
Yes. The petition is from Mr. Piambo and 9 others, submitted to the Office of the President of the Senate. And it says, prays that the Senate should look into, against the Council for Regulation of Engineering, COREN, for ineffectiveness in regulating technical practice in Nigeria. They pray that the Senate should look into the matter and request for the establishment of a distinct regulatory council for the regulation of technical works and education in Nigeria.
Well, we can take it, but I'm afraid it does not fall within what we can regard as a petition here. It's something that has to do with probably, well, you can, but...
Yeah, when we meet, Mr.
Okay,
President,
you can, since there's no legal encumbrance, you can submit that.
Okay. The second petition is from Mr. Ikena Ahimbe, Esquire, against the Air Peace and United Airlines for their unjustified and exploitative hike in airfares during Christmas seasons and the forthcoming Christmas season inclusive. He is praying that the Senate should look into the matter and direct the airlines to immediately cease and desist from further exploitation of passengers. These are the petitions, Mr. President.
Did the gentleman go to court? Did he go to court?
No, it's not in court.
You may lay the petitions on the table.
Mr. President.
The two petitions are referred to the Senate Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct and Public Petitions, led by Senator Nelda, the person that submitted the petitions, to report back within 4 weeks. Any other petition? The Senate Leader.
Mr. President, most distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in the name of the Senate Leader on the Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply Management Act Amendment Bill 2025, HB 346. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply Management Act Amendment Bill 2025 HB 346, first reading.
Chartered Institute of Purchasing and Supply Management Act Amendment Bill 2025 HB 346, first reading. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Endangered Species Conservation and Protection Bill 2025, HB 1085. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Endangered Species Conservation and Protection Bill 2025 HB 1085, first reading.
Endangered Species Conservation and Protection Bill 2025 HB 1085, first reading taken. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Annie Anthony Okorie on the National Automobile Production Agency Establishment Bill 2025, SB.
The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Automobile Production Agency Establishment Bill 2025, SB 554, first reading.
National Automobile Production Agency Act Established Bill 2025, SB 554, first reading. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Kawus Smaila Suleiman on the National Center for the Coordination of Early Warning and Responsive Mechanisms Bill 2025, SB 774. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Center for the Coordination of Early Warning and the Response Mechanism Bill 2025, SB 774, first reading.
National Center for Coordination of Early Warning and Response Mechanism Bill 2025, SB 774, first reading. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of most distinguished Senator Ekong Sampson on the Orphanage Homes Registration, Regulation and Supervision Agency Establishment Bill 2025, SB 915. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Orphanage Homes Registration, Regulation and Supervision Agency Establishment Bill 2025 SB 915. First reading.
Orphanage Homes Registration, Regulation and Supervision Agency Establishment Bill 2025 SB 915. First reading. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the sixth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of Her Excellency, most distinguished Senator Adebule Idiat Oluranti, on the Treaty-Making Procedure Repeal and Enactment Bill 2025, SB 916. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
The Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Treaty-Making Procedure Repeal and Enactment Bill 2025 SB 916. First reading.
Treaty Making Procedure Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2025 SB 916. First reading. The Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is the second reading of the Electoral Act Repeal and Enactment Bill 2025, SB 903. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 8 October 2025. Mr. President, you may wish to invite His Excellency, most distinguished Senator Simon Bako Lalong, to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Senator Excellency Simon Bako Lalong, the floor is yielded to you to move that the bill, that the floor is yielded to you to move for the second reading of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Simon Lalong, representing the good people of Plateau South. Mr. President, I rise to move for the presentation of this bill for the second time, second reading.
You can go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, once again I rise to lead the debate on the general principles of the Electoral Act 2025, the Repeal and Enactment Bill 2025. This bill as late presented in this hallowed chamber for the first reading on the 8th of October 2025. It's not a mere amendment, but a comprehensive reform, a repeal and enactment intended to provide Nigeria with a strong more credible and more inclusive electoral framework. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the 2023 general elections tested our democracy in profound ways. While the Electoral Act 2022 delivered some landmark innovations, it also exposed deep flaws of our country's electoral system with critical gaps, delays in the release of election funds, disputes over the voter register, conflicting interpretations of result transmission, widespread litigation from party primaries, weak enforcement of electoral offenses. Nigerians expect us to respond not with patchwork corrections, but with a holistic, future-facing law that restores faith in our elections. The key objectives of the proposed legislation, Mr. President, are: one, to bring about improvement in the electoral process by ensuring transparency, efficiency, and integrity of the electoral system. Two, to ensure there is free and fair competitions where all political parties are given equal opportunities to compete favorably in elections. Three, to ensure that the outcomes of elections reflect the will of the people. And four, to reduce electoral malpractices by setting stricter punitive measures to serve as deterrents to electoral malpractices. Five, to enhance voters' confidence and participation in elections, thereby reducing voters' apathy. And six, to further strengthen the independence of INEC by insulating it from incessant and unnecessary interference from the government and political parties, etc. This bill applies across the full spectrum of our electoral process. It strengthens the institutional independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, by mandating early release of funds and clearer tenure protections for resident electoral commissioners. It mandates continuous voter registration. It introduces digital registers of result, QR code voter IDs, and more robust procedures for electronic transmission of results. It sets stricter timelines and clearer rules for party primaries, candidate nomination, and replacement in cases of death or withdrawal. It reviews campaign financing ceilings and enhances disclosure requirements. Most importantly, Mr. President, it imposes tougher penalties for electoral offenses from vote buying to false result declaration. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill is about more than election day. It is about strengthening the very foundation of democracy. If we get it right, we will restore public trust, reduce post-election disputes, and empower INEC to function without interference. If we falter, we risk perpetuating a cycle of contested elections, judicial overload, and declining voter confidence. On this note, I therefore urge my colleagues to support this bill so that we may subject its provisions to the necessary scrutiny in committee and incorporate the voices of Nigerians through the forthcoming public hearing. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I humbly submit that in compliance with Order 76, Sub Rule 3 of the Senate Standing Orders 2023, as amended, the Electoral Act 2022, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2025 will not impose financial obligation on the Treasury of the federal government and therefore deserves the consideration and passage of this Senate. I so move.
Okay, let me start with Senator Odende or Titus. Who do you want to pick? Okay, Senator Odende, you can start.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Emmanuel Mengaud, and I represent the very good people of Benue Northeast. So from reading of the lead debate, you know that this is a very good bill but unfortunately the bill is not attached. How do we discuss it? So I think it's not matured for debate without attaching the.
No, it's being produced. You can, it will come. You can
Why
continue.
debate?
It's been, excuse me. I want to, please be guided. The second reading of every bill does not entail going into the nitty-gritty. It's about the general principle of the bill. So he has not done anything out of order. You don't have to go to the nitty-gritty. It's the principle behind it that you need to amend the electoral act in order to strengthen our electoral system. That is the main issue. So you are not going to nitty-gritty. At the later stage of the process of the bill, you will be given the details. So please do not. You can partake in the debate. So continue.
Well, Mr. President, I support the second reading of this bill. It's very important for us to have this bill in place at least 1 year before elections so that we can do our elections without hitches. It's very important for us. I urge my colleagues to support the second reading of this bill.
Very good. That's the principle. That's the principle behind the amendment. Senator Tassizam.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Titus Tatengizam. I represent Benue Northwest Senatorial District. Just like my colleague, Senator Odende has acknowledged, this is a very ambitious exercise that is aimed at strengthening our electoral system. And so I support the second reading of the bill as proposed by my dear brother, Senator Simon Lalong. I so submit. Thank you.
Senator Zam, what aspect of the bill are you seconding or supporting?
Well, we don't have any copy of the bills here, but we are guided that since this is a second reading, we should discuss the general principles of the bill. It's about
you can
strengthening
discuss
our
the
electoral
general
system.
principles of the bill.
We don't have it
But
yet.
the bill is in existence already. There is an act of parliament on the electoral act, right?
Yes.
There is an act of parliament. So the amendments that you are seeking to bring,
Yes.
the general principles will be discussed, but you ought to know the clauses that are going to be. Senator Binus, you want to assist him? Please do.
Thank you, Mr. President, and welcome, my distinguished colleagues. I stand as a member of the committee that dealt with this bill to lend my voice in support of the second reading of the bill. Mr. President, I would like to make a small clarification. The public might wonder how our process is being implemented, because you'll expect the second reading of the bill to be done before it is referred to the committee before a public hearing. But the committee, working jointly with the House Committee, has been working on this bill for over 1 year. And we have virtually agreed on the outcome of the bill. So on Monday, the public hearing was held. And this bill has been listed for second reading, I think last week. It wasn't taken. On Monday, on Tuesday, it wasn't taken. And yesterday, it wasn't taken. So because we want to complete this work in good time, we have abridged the process, and we are now bringing the bill for second reading. And I urge my colleagues to support the second reading, and also the public to note that holding public hearing before second reading.
Senator Binus.
Thank you, sir.
May I thank you? The problem, the question I'm asking, nobody has answered. The question I asked is, we have an act of parliament in existence called the Electoral Act. Am I right? Now we are seeking to amend it to bring it in line with the aspirations of Nigerians. Of particular to me is the fact that I was cheated in 2019 elections. And we went to court, and the court annulled the election. And in annulling the election, the court said the mutilations were terrible and that whoever was the returning officer was a danger to civility and must be prosecuted. So the court ordered the prosecution of the electoral officer. But instead of prosecuting the resident electoral commissioner, they rather prosecuted the returning officer, a professor from University of Calabar who had done 34 years in service. And he was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. The same INEC resident electoral commissioner, working with some cohorts, changed the story and said the man was trying to assist Senator Godswill Akpabio. If the man was trying to assist Senator Godswill Akpabio, how come they burnt my votes in my local government? How come I was not announced as the winner? I kept quiet. So if we are amending the Electoral Act, the real offenders must be held responsible. Because at the level of a returning officer, the man can only announce what is collated from the collation centers. But a situation whereby the resident electoral commissioner sends security men to go and hijack the announcement to his office, which is against the Electoral Act. And then the court says the person who committed this offense should be prosecuted, and they prosecuted the wrong person. So we must also look at what INEC is doing. INEC should be held responsible for certain infractions in the Electoral Act. All the rumors and all the misconceptions and everything, I want to, anybody who has sense will ask the question. If the returning officer was trying to assist Senator Godswill Akpabio, how come the votes were hijacked to INEC headquarters, and INEC headquarters announced a different person, which was annulled in the court? So the person that went free ought to have been the person to be prosecuted. So if we are going to amend the Electoral Act, it must be all-encompassing. And also the timeline for elections and timeline for campaigns. You can't be campaigning for 8 months, and then you add another 3 months. You resign from your place of work 3 months before, then you go for 8 months campaign, and everything comes to 11 months. So a president who has a minister that has a political ambition cannot even have, because he has six weeks before he appoints, he has 2 months before, 60 days to send the list of ministers for clearance. So if you add that to the so-called 3 months before primaries and the 8 months of campaigns, it simply means that in a 4-year period, governance will suffer. Those who are supposed to serve the public will not even have the opportunity to do it up to 3 years in a 4-year tenure of any administration. Those are the things I want to hear. So if you are bringing amendment and we go into general principles, the general principle is we are going to amend the Electoral Act, we are going to do this. So I wanted to know whether there are certain nitty-gritties that will convince us here of the need to make it to pass second reading. So my opinion, Senator Lalong, you have not touched the nitty-gritty of the reason why you want us to pass this for second reading. Yes, you are supposed to talk about general principles. General principles will be okay. But
Yes,
what have you been able to tell us? I'm thinking that for us to proceed with this, that we will not stop it immediately.
Yes, sir.
But I think we should go into closed session so that you can let us know the areas that you have been able to point out. Let's not be taken by surprise when we go for for public hearing. Let
Mr.
it be that
President,
the members are aware of the areas
okay.
that you wish to. But if you want to argue with me, go ahead.
Okay. People are.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that this be stepped down until we go into closed session for further discussion, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So this is hereby stepped down. Leader of the Senate. Next item. Please approach the chair.
Second reading, that invoice regulation.
1 minute. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, still on the bill from His Excellency, most distinguished Senator Lalong, that we just discussed. And specifically, I'm referring to the bill for an act to repeal the Electoral Act number 13, 2022, and enact the Electoral Bill 2025 to regulate the conduct of federal, state, and area councils in the Federal Capital Territory elections, and for related matters. Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, I just want to most respectfully say that I believe the time today is not auspicious for us to go into executive session to discuss this bill. Also because it is my conviction that there's a need for further consultation on this bill before we can actually proceed. And the need to also ensure that distinguished colleagues understand the general principles of the bill, which are the things we are supposed to thoroughly debate at the second reading. In view of this, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I will be moving that we actually step down further consideration of this bill till another legislative day for further consultation. I so move, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the motion moved by the Senate leader that we step down this bill to another legislative day for further consultations. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion has been moved by the leader that on the Electoral Act amendment that we proceed to step it down totally to another legislative day in view of the loaded program of the Senate today and the need for further consultations, particularly for us to know the clauses and the areas of amendment which should be in tandem with the desires of the Nigerian people and to ensure effective electoral practices. Those in support of the motion as moved and seconded by the leader say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari, did you hear what we said? Approach the chair.
distinguished colleagues, the main business of the day will soon commence. So, the leader of the Senate, you may wish to take charge.
Leader, are you ready? Okay. Have you shared it to all the members?
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the screening and confirmation of Professor Joash O. Amupiton, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for appointment as the chairman, independent.
Please take your seat.
The second order of the day is the screening and confirmation of Professor Joash O. Amupiton, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, for appointment as the chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, in accordance with Section 154, Sub 1 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, as amended.
Lalong, take your seat, sir.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, in order to carry.
Shomole, take your seat. Senator Shomole, take your seat. Senator Lalong, take your seat, sir.
Yes.
Senator Shomole, take your seat, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. President and very distinguished colleagues, in order to carry out this screening exercise in conformity with our Standing Order 12 on floor privileges, I will be moving two motions. The first is that the Senate do resolve into the Committee of the Whole to conduct the confirmation hearing. And my second motion will be that the Senate do admit the nominee, Professor Joash O. Amupiton, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, as well as the Special Advisor to Mr. President on National Assembly Matters, Senate, as well as other officials of INEC and members of the family of the nominee into the Senate as strangers. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second the motion that the Senate do set aside its relevant rules to admit strangers into the chamber. I so second.
Before I put the question, I've been looking for Senator Wadada. Where is he? Okay, why I said so is because he used to be on this side. So I was looking at this side, whether he's here now. But it's true. And then, yes, 15th October, 2020, no, I won't mention the year. 15th October was his birthday. 15th day of October. I won't mention the year. So on behalf of the Senate, I want to wish distinguished Senator Ahmed Wadada a very happy birthday, long life, prosperity, and many more years of service to our fatherland, Nigeria. So accept our congratulations on your birthday. And I don't know whether he's sitting, Senator Gbizagwa, is he sitting near to you? Where? Okay. Wherever he's sitting. So congratulations to him. Now we have two motions on the floor. Minority Leader of the Senate, you may wish to second the two motions. Number one. Okay, in that case, so we proceed. Those in support that we suspend our rules and accept strangers into the hallowed chamber of the Senate, and also resolve into a committee of the whole to undertake the next assignment. Can you say aye? Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The rules are suspended and strangers will now be led by the Sergeant at Arms into the hallowed chamber of the Senate, and then we resolve into the committee of the whole to undertake the next business of the day.
No.
Distinguished colleagues, let me, on behalf of the Senate, welcome strangers into the hallowed chamber of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I don't know, but we expect that we have before us Professor Joash Amopiton, PhD and Senior Advocate of Nigeria, a nominee for the office of National Chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission. We also directed that his immediate family, the wife and the children, could also be allowed into the chambers on an important day like this. And then if we have members of the Independent National Electoral Commission, particularly the national commissioners, accompanying him, they could also indicate so that we can recognize their presence. So distinguished Senator Lado, the presidential advisor on Senate matters, you can do that by getting us the names for recognition. But in the meantime, I would like to invite Professor Joash Amopiton to please take the stand. For the okay. So we have alongside him Barrister Favor Amopiton. We have Marvelous Amopiton. And then we have, is it Beloved Amopiton? I don't know. Is that Beloved? Okay, wonderful name. Beloved Amopiton is also part of the entourage of the Prof. So, Prof, you are welcome to the hallowed chamber of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are expected, in line with the Constitution, to ask you a few questions. But permit me to mention to members that vetting and fingerprinting had been done by the Office of the Special Advisor, the Department of State Security had also done security vetting, and the Prof has been cleared. And the Prof has also gone to the Office of the Inspector General of Police, where proper fingerprinting search has been done on him. And from the report I have, the subject does not have any criminal record with the police as of date. And so, Prof, you are welcome to the Senate. Just give us a brief resume. And not really what we are, because we are a very compassionate and people-oriented chamber. We always provide a seat nearby and a bottle of water. So the moment you feel that you want to take water or you want to have a sit down, just indicate. We will allow you to have a brief sitting, and then you come back, because we don't want any incidents here. Our hospital is not yet ready. So you are welcome to the Senate. Give us a brief resume of yourself.
fact, the University of Jos, being head of the Department of Public Law, also being the Dean of the Faculty of Law. I happen to be one of the longest serving deans because I served for 6 years, while ordinarily you are supposed to serve for 4. But because I was scaled upon, take the university faculty to another level. Because during my tenure as the Dean of the Faculty of Law, first time, Faculty of Law became top best person, became the top best faculty on NIA's ranking. And I was able to also work on scholars that get the grant of $150,000 from the Carnegie Corporation of the US. That was one of the major breakthroughs at the Carnegie Corporation, leading to establishment of ICT, High Legal Research for Lawyers, Faculty of Law University. That was the very first, not only in Nigeria, all of us. Plus, English senators, I was appointed senior advocate year 20, and also appointed as Deputy Vice Chancellor, Administration, October 20. Position I held out to senators and the body appointed or have to reach that. Let's just see. Yes. So that's one thing. I also was appointed chairman of the council. Mission was to university of an Ivy, one of the best. I began a career and was substantial member of the Nigerian Bar Association, all teachers, but others are like that. Some of this one. Importantly, also want to pause that I have also been Parliament, nationality, participated severally, some of very, very abuse policy, very nice, by some of which one was a consultant. I own those I think are top experts from all over the world. Various that no specific Parliament are completed. Also privileged, expensive. Thus, and the keynote address of the 8th House of topic that is tied to the African levels of 8th House of Representatives. That's what other members. At the team, I also presented a paper sometime in 2008 on politics, governance, challenges, and reform bill form of 500. And also, as the bills eventually led to amendment some of those laws. And also assisted on the 2018 Act under the House Pass bills now yes like dollars after the modernization bill entered by Congress because that's very now that's about other details I see whatever government council want to bore you all the
The floor is open. Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. First of all, let me congratulate the nominee for being so nominated by Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, I spent the whole of yesterday reading through this resume. And what I discovered is that the nominee has a wonderful pedigree, wonderful track record as contained in this document to occupy this office. And I went on to follow up with trying to substantiate, make sure that what I read, all what is contained here are true. And I asked questions, talked to some of the lecturers in the university. This is my friend. And everything was confirmed to be true. So he has the necessary track record and pedigree to my judgment. But I want to ask a question. INEC has, or everybody think of that, and it's true, that the ability of INEC to conduct credible elections, the ability, independence of INEC is sine qua non to achieving that. Independence of INEC is sine qua non to making sure that it has the ability to conduct free and fair elections. Now, going by your wonderful pedigree, showing that you are a man of integrity, someone who has the capability to occupy this office, how will you bring this to bear in making sure that your operations, your operational decisions, your policy decisions are not influenced by external forces? Please, just give me step-by-step description on how you can achieve this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Every question must be concise. Only the Deputy Senate President has the latitude to ask extended questions. So, Prof, you have a paper. You have to note so that you can take as many questions as possible before you answer. But because of the person of the Deputy Senate President, please proceed and answer.
Very grateful, Senate President, for questions. I think under the Constitution 155 and index and one of the commissions that was meant of the problems with right. explained mentioned. And I want to call it ransom, quality and power as granted autonomy, but it's possible we are able to grant it. So that let us well as it was use our knowledge. Sure. Yes. Come and notice. What are those factors?
Distinguished Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues and Mr. Nominee. For me, Mr. President, where you come from matters to me. Your pedigree, your antecedents also matter to me. I must confess that you have a very intimidating resume. I want to ask, you have indicated here most of the areas and activities that you have engaged in for the first time. For the first time. And I want to say that, as they say, you have satisfied the requirements
Use your
in character.
Use your campaign voice. Let's ask questions before conclusion.
Okay. You have satisfied, as they say, both in character and learning, the requirements for the award of the numerous degrees that you have now. One of the very critical things or concerns of Nigerians, and indeed the international community, is the integrity of elections. Which could make or mar democracy. I want to ask, with your wealth of experience, can you share with us what accountability mechanisms that you will expand or introduce into our electoral process to allay these concerns? Mr. President, that is my question.
Distinguished Senator Lalong.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Once again, Simon Lalong, representing Plateau South, and also Plateau State, where you are coming from. Chairman, Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters. Prof, I won't call it intimidating resume, but exemplary resume, because you were one time, you were my dean, you supervised my dissertation, you were a great judge. No, it's not disqualified. I was a student, ordinary student.
Senator, Distinguished Senator Lalong, I didn't hear you well.
Sir, I said in the course of my studies, I also went through him.
When
I was reading master's degree, but I didn't go to University of Jos. I went to ABU and came back, did master's I met him briefly. I saw him briefly there as a dean. He was the dean. He was the dean. So he didn't supervise me directly. He was the dean.
Senator Along, please do not bias the minds of members. Why I'm saying this is, if you went through him,
yes,
or you went under him, however you did, all we want to, from what you are saying, you want to attest to his character.
Yes, sir.
So just say, I attest to his character, then you sit down so that others can ask questions.
Thank you. Yes, Prof. There's a very important thing. As a professor of evidence, one of the thorny issues that came up in the last election was the issue of beavers and IRF platform, which were game changers. But we also saw operational challenges in the last elections. Given your understanding of the terrain, how do you intend to ensure these technologies function optimally going forward? That's my question, Mr. President.
Prof, can they take more questions? Or do you want to answer those two? Yeah?
I leave it to your discretion, sir.
You take more questions? Because I noticed that almost the entire Senate is eager to ask you questions. And they all represent senatorial districts and constituencies. And the questions they are asking you are the concerns of Nigerians, of their constituents. Because of the fact that they were participants in the various elections. So they are very familiar. And all they want to know is whether things will change. So he's saying that the beavers and the IRF were meant to be game changers. But instead, in some instances, they presented difficulties and problems that could not be solved by the ordinary people. So if you become the national chairman of INEC, what do you hope to do? But that is very technical. I think you should get into the office, study it, study the flaws, and from there, you will know what to do. But if he has an answer, okay, based on the fact that you have been working with us from the House of Representatives, so you have an idea. So proceed to answer.
And also a professor of evidence.
Distinguished senators, the purpose of introducing us and IRF was to ensure the integrity of the election. That is the purpose of technology. I believe what happened in 20 was a glitch. But before we went into my own understanding of the constitutional court found that there was no clarity, purpose, of IRF. Not until the Supreme Court came out to say that IRF was not that electronic commission system. That's not valuable. INEC was supposed that Paris was the loss made by the Senate. Not really away with my language. However, INEC was supposed to write checks and balances. But when to this one has nobody. That's everything. So I have to admit I'm giving the Because it is not just INEC, have other agencies, the service people have to work together so that the technology that everybody will. I want to believe that that's that. What is especially on the logistic protection itself, so that fast treating. Don't know the problem. So find proper treating. Problems heading up. I give one example. Logistic problem. Buy on all the vehicles when you see them they are old. And not even offer. When they talk about it, they don't even back. So they are abandoned voting. But vision is of the transport. Now to be hired in a ship and so we need to take and then it has to go.
So, Prof, you are saying that when they drop the materials at the various units, they hardly come back to pick the results. So some of our results must have been forgotten.
The results are not forgotten, sir. But you find that enough that as soon as the election is over, so long, you have to even make their own arrangement to get information. Process they get there very late. And so sometimes they get there money was the police officer. Actually, I had to do it. So logistics. Right, logistics. Transport.
Senator Yari. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues. Prof, congratulations for this tax that coming out of you, more especially where we're heading to in the next 1.5 years. My question is on the budget utilization and maybe to explain to the Senate how transparently we will be, more especially during the upcoming major election. The budget of INEC, if you look at it, election after election, it's not growing like inflation. Maybe the inflation of this year may be 18%. It will grow by next maybe with 1.0% or 0.5%. But the INEC budget is grown by like double. So how do you intend to transparently, judiciously utilize, apply the funds we're going to approve to you for the major election? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Goje.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am Mohammed Njimo Goje, presenting Gombe Central, Gombe State. Mr. Nominee, I also join my colleagues in congratulating you and wish you sounding success in this very difficult job. There are these recurring accusations against the role of the security agencies during elections, even though we know that we can't do elections without them. The security agencies are the necessary partners with the success and progress of elections, but there's this widespread belief that they collude in trying to make things difficult, particularly for some people, that some parties or people that they don't like, to the extent of making people to see the elections as not really transparent. They intimidate and collude in altering results or pushing away people from elections. Some people have, in some polling stations, you find that, especially during collection centers, you find that they cordon off the place, they allow those they want to allow in, they prevent those they don't want to be inside the collection centers. As the chairman of ANEC, how do you now handle this issue of security agencies so as to ensure the integrity of the elections, that all parties will be satisfied with the performance of ANEC? Thank you.
Senator, former Speaker, former Governor, Tamboa.
Mr. President, my respected colleagues, and the nominee, I am Amin Waziri Tamboa. I represent Sokoto South Senatorial District. Mr. Nominee, I wish you well, and I reserve the congratulations until you serve your tenure. And I hope and pray that you'll be able to successfully carry out your duty. And at that point, I'll come home and congratulate you. Having gone through your resume and knowing you personally, I want to know your views on areas that you think require amendment in the Electoral Act as it is today, that will improve on the outcomes of elections and the integrity of elections in Nigeria. I believe that you have worked on the Electoral Act before and you have the experience. You should be able to highlight these areas so that may guide eventually what we are going to do here in the amendment of the Electoral Act. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Nengi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Let me join the Senate President in welcoming you, Professor George. Let me begin by saying you were born in 1967. That makes you a middle-aged person. That tells you that your golden years is still ahead of you. This position that you've been nominated for, you have now become the attention of Nigeria and the international community. And looking at your resume, in particular on page 11, Academic Professional Awards, we mentioned Richard Akinjide for Best Overall Student, of 1987, led Carly Brown Peterside, prize for the best overall law student. University of Jos, prize for the best overall student. Fulbright scholarship, visiting researcher at the University of Iowa, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and Dr. Teslim Award of Meritorious Service. The agency that you are about to take over is not a stranger to professors. Professor Henry Wosu, Professor Jega, and Professor Yakubu, Professor Iwu, and so on and so forth. What that tells you and tells Nigeria, the issue is not about academic excellence. It has to do with someone's upbringing, his forthrightness, his fairness, and his patriotism, and of course, the love of this country. As a member of Electoral Committee, courtesy of the Senate, we have traversed this country. And one of the highlights of our public interaction is the demand for transmissions of results real time. And that encapsulates a lot of logistics, but more particularly about the mindset of the leader of that agency. What do you understand by transmission of results real times? And do you think, just like most Nigerians think, that this is tenable, this is achievable? What is your position about transmission of that real times? Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ojo Zakalo.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Oje Uzokalo. I represent Abia North of Abia State Senatorial District. Mr. President, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Mr. Nominee, thank you for coming, and my question will be very brief to you because your resume have shown. When I got this resume, I thought I was going to go back to school. I asked the person, is there a CV? He said yes. The young lady that brought it, I said, for you? He said yes. And I was surprised. But knowing you as a professor, let me go straight to the question. One persistent challenge that have been of late is the deployment of materials and personnel. Knowing the vastness of our nation and the complexity of the country, tell us, what strategy will you bring to manage the complexity of the country, especially on the areas that have bad terrains and security challenges? These areas are areas that you must not allow any Nigeria to be disenfranchised because they have security challenge, or because people will tell you, oh, that place is hilly, that place is far. What is your strategy? Is threatening to give free, fair, and just election that will be acceptable by all Nigerians. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ositango.
Thank you, Mr. President and my colleagues. My name is Ositango Ugu. I represent Enugu West. Prof, I'll congratulate you, but I'm sure you have had enough accolades. So I'll go straight to the question. No matter how beautiful our electoral policies and procedures are, the integrity of the people who carry out this election matters. Now I'm going to talk about the integrity of the people who either are INEC staff or ad hoc staff, who are going to be the people who conduct these elections. Prof, how are you going to set up an internal mechanism that is going to deter the people conducting elections from compromising? How are you going to prevent it? And what mechanism are you going to put in place to detect when such compromises occur? And finally, how are you going to ensure that there is adequate punishment, maybe working with the National Assembly, to prosecute those who are entrusted with the responsibility to conduct the election, but who goes back to compromise the election? Thank you very much.
Very good question. I wish he came last so that we can reassure all Nigerians. But it's a very good question. Very, very good question. Because Prof can only administer, but the real nitty-gritty is with those who are vested with the responsibility of going to the nooks and crannies of the nation. What they do and bring back can either mar his administration or promote his administration. So, Prof, it's at that stage, I think you should answer together with the other questions so far asked.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Senate President, distinguished senators. May I start by taking the last question first? I think that is a major concern. Major concern. One of the things that we have to do to work out a mechanism that we can use prayer of humans. First place, taking this and the people who are going to work also appreciate the fact that Nigeria first, because we have made the law that should be done. So one of ways that committee that I have an audit what has happened, because there have been several cases that have been reported and not made. Some have been taken to court, like Bayelsa State, there were some cases like that, and where some who are convicted. So